way where because Royal Farmers can't be everything to everyone.
Yes.
It may well be that in one area they're willing to pay for, because you know what you said earlier about if you're really complex you get help is not true either.
Yeah.
So let me cite you examples. I mean, I can cite you lots of examples in mental health.
Please do.
There are times, with the consensus of the team, I have advocated for actually saying to local services, if you're not going to work with us collaboratively, well, actually, we can't provide services as well. And that's about, because the number of times we hear things like, oh, well, you're going to Raw Far West, therefore we're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
So really, these kids cannot be managed distally by telehealth or any other means without local involvement. I'm talking about the really complex ones, right?
Yes.
So in some ways, I think one of the things that Raw Farmers could do is to kind of think, look, you know, this particular PHN, the current fund holders, want us to provide services for the really pointy end.
Yeah.
And can I just remind you, if you have a local inpatient service or a local high-intense service, the costs are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right? So to run an inpatient bed, just bare bones, is about $200,000 a year.
Shit.
Bare bones, right? So you can't kind of expect Raw Farmers to, at $130 per session, manage this kid. If they had to manage locally, they'd be paying all the huge amounts of money.
That's
So
right.
I guess my point is, if a particular PHN wants us to see their more moderate end of people, well, they would need to be charged differently to another PHN which says, listen, we have lots of local, pointy end services. What we are lacking are the kids who don't quite meet threshold for the pointy end services.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that Raw Farmers could, going forward, begin to negotiate different types of contracts and, of course, payment for those contracts.
Yeah.
Depending on what a particular locality wants.
And look, that totally fits in with the realist, because we're using realist evaluation, which is what works for who, how, and under what circumstances. We can't assume that one model will work in one town that's, 50 kilometres away from another. Like, they're all going to have such diverse contextual issues and like challenges. So I think that's a really important point. I've kept you more than 45 minutes, and I could talk to you all day. But do you want to go now? I mean, I was just going to ask you a little bit about NDIS, because we're going to talk to Medicare, Department of Health, Department of Education, and private health insurers and the NDIS senior people about kind of the data we collect from this first stage. Is there anything you'd like to say to any of those stakeholders about telehealth?
Well,
I mean, I've got you on the record about Medicare, but yeah.
So, the key thing is, I'm sorry to keep going back to this.
I know.
The quality of the infrastructure, the hardware is really, really critical.
Yep.
Right? That's one point. And therefore, obviously with the National Broadband Network, the NBN, you would think that this should not be a point of discussion going forward. But,
It is.
You've heard anecdotes.
Oh my God, have I heard? Yes.
Yes. That in fact with NBN that the data quality has gone backwards.
Yes.
That's another discussion.
Yes.
The other thing is, of course, with the NDIS, I think it's really important for us to remember that the way the funding packages are now occurring seems somewhat random. Like, I was talking to a family at Royal Far West on Wednesday who said that they had an $83,000 a year NDIS package.
Holy wow.
And this is more, I would say, moderate kid, not a severe kid.
Wow.
And they couldn't access local psychology, which is absolutely necessary for this kid.
Yeah.
And then, I was kind of thinking, well, if there is that much NDIS funding, why is it that we can't provide some psychology for this kid from somewhere else, distally?
Yes.
telehealth. Now, of course, I know that Royal Far West are thinking of ways, but it's not like, like without kind of, naming any one particular discipline.
Yeah.
It's not like I can pick up the phone, talk to someone and say, look, here's a family, they have money, who can provide it? It's not straightforward as yet. So I'm hoping that going forwards that NDIS would have, I know we are Royal Far West is NDIS registered. So in some ways, in talking to NDIS people, I'm not sure there's a lot you would need to ask, except kind of acknowledge that, is it possible for our clinicians to be doing that? And it's do they need to be registered individually? Because I know the windmill program is occurring, but I'm still not fully got my head around how it exactly operates.
Well, I think that Royal Far West as an organisation hasn't either, and I mean that's the big challenge, isn't it? Like having a PHN contract where you service 300 kids is really straightforward, but having individual contracts with individual kids that can be renewed after 1 year is a huge amount of administration. And I think it's come up in a lot of interviews exactly what you said. People are like, well, we know we have this service and we meet people who it may be appropriate, but we're not quite sure. Like, is there a process whereby you can call and say, I've got a client who needs telepsychology? Like, that sort of hasn't, I guess the model still hasn't evolved to
Sure.
capture the benefit of NDIS yet, and we don't know whether it can.
And there's another side to this. And look, I'm not talking about psychology, I'm just talking about clinicians generally.
That's okay.
Me included.
Yeah.
If the structures aren't in place, if there's not a sense of, this is serious, there's, there are protective processes in place, there's, people are going to be reluctant and anxious to take it on.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, in a sense, finishing off by saying, I think Royal Far West expanding telehealth is really, really important. But I think we need to think about our workforce as well and their ability to continue to provide it. Because I'm fairly confident, because I work with a number of allied health disciplines across other settings as well. So I guess I'm trying to point out this is not unique to Royal Far West clinicians. So I think there's got to be a better understanding of what are the challenges for clinicians and some effort to see how those could be addressed so that you have the confidence on the part of clinicians to deliver stuff as well.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Dr. Wick, you've given me so much time and you're gorgeous. And that's, there's a lot of stuff in there that has answered questions that we've been asking, so it's hugely helpful. And that the adoption by clinicians is coming up as a huge issue. The way both the reimbursement and organisational factors support clinicians to adopt telehealth seems to be really key to sustainability. And I have to say for myself personally, having access to one of the telehealth team, who has really made my job a lot easier since she was appointed to that role. Yeah. As compared to previously when there was someone who wasn't technologically savvy trying to liaise with families, and that wasn't working. So I have a personal example of where having the support structures has made it much more doable, pleasurable, sustainable as compared to what it was prior to that. So you think the role of those sort of telecare coordinators, do you think that helps with the outcomes that we're looking for, which is improving quality, efficiency and sustainability?
Absolutely. I mean, for me it has.
Yeah.
Having someone who it's all set up because in a sense, in terms of, people's individual time, if that can be done by someone else, where all you do is it's all set up, you go in there, you sit in front of the camera and you do your stuff and you leave. Yeah. That's a lot more efficient than you trying to do stuff which you're not familiar with. Yeah. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think in terms of efficiency, it's been a huge help to have a telecare coordinator.
On that note, any specific skills you'd want those telecare coordinators to have? Because it's like a new role in the world, so we're trying to work out what skills they should have. If you've got any quick feedback